Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the BetaFPV Pavo Pico 2. As in the case with a lot of iterations, whether it's movies, cars, or drones, the changes from 1 to 2 aren't huge, but we'll cover them in some degree or form. But mine came with the 04 Lite. I tend to call it just the 04, but they do have a bracket for the 04 Pro, which I kind of feel for this sort of quad, that should be what you go to, but you're going to have to purchase the 04 separately or have one on hand because I don't see it listed on the website where you can buy it stock with the 04 and already connected. So that's something that you need to weigh if you were to be interested in something like this. The flight controller is an F4. It is a 2 and 3S compatible, but this quad is set to and designed to run 2S, and it does have a 20 amp ESC built into that flight controller. Motors are BetaFPV's own Lava 1102, 14,000 kV. The props are Jim Fan 45mm tri-bladed props. Of course, we have our Express LRS antenna. As we see more and more, they just come with a connector for the USB connection. So in the box, you'll find a little dongle here with an FPV brand, and it is USB-C. Don't lose this little guy. While we're here, battery connection is an XT30. The frame is carbon fiber, and you'll note the additional holes back here. That is for mounting the 04 Pro bracket, which you can purchased separately. And we have our plastic prop protection, as well as you can see on mine, a little bit of damage. Yeah, I don't fly these things safely all the time, but also you may have noticed when I touch this thing, yeah, it's got rubber dampening on here. With the 04 Lite, we do have access to the button for binding purposes, as well as the USB-C connection. Also in the box, we get the dongle that I already mentioned, as well as a spare set of props, screwdriver, Allen wrench, and just 2 extra dampeners. We would need 4 to replace all of them, so they give you just 2 extra. Order and support card with QR codes. And the standard sheet that we get with every 04 Lite. Just kind of the obligatory stuff. And the box is empty, no stickers. The Pavo Pico 2 with the 04 Lite weighs 54.5 grams. I flew it on these sizes and types of batteries, but really when it comes to using the battery tray, you're going to want to use the 450 or 550 from BetaFPV. The G&B 530s as well as the 380s, they will fit, but it's terrible tight. And matter of fact, I broke the battery tray stuffing that 530 in. With the 550, it weighs 84.12 grams. With the 450, it weighs 80.59 grams. And with the 530, it weighs 80.87 grams. And the 380 really isn't usable. You're going to get annoyed by a lot of low voltage warnings and initial battery sag. But with that one, it weighs 76.49 grams. Carbon fiber looks like it's about 1.5 millimeters thick. And motor post to motor post, well, I'm getting 80 millimeters. If you're not familiar with the channel, I'm going to show you several different sorts of flights, and that's something that I do when I test these things. It usually takes about 2 weeks. I usually get at least at a minimum 5 flight sessions in, so you're going to see several different flights, times a day. Information like that is going to be presented in this video. This particular flight is a pre-work flight before I headed off for the day. Nice and calm, 0 miles an hour on the wind, which is really what something this small and this light, if you're wanting to get good, steady footage, you're going to want to have the wind, if you're outside, to be as low as possible. And a little bit later in the video, I will kind of display how it handles wind to a degree on an inside flight. But I'm flying the 450 BetaFPV lava battery, and it's only 55 degrees, so a little bit cool. Winter is coming, as they say. But the footage looks nice, and we're starting out here on the DVR side, so there's no stabilization. You get to see, how the camera actually handles any sort of bobbles or vibrations that might be happening within the quad. Whenever we have this dampening, there's always the possibility that that dampening doesn't necessarily take out vibrations, but it could sometimes introduce vibrations. And now we've switched over to the high-resolution recording directly on the 04. Another reason why I recommend going towards the 04 Pro is just you have more storage with the use of having an SD card inserted right into it. Yes, it comes at a weight penalty, so if you go with the 04 Pro, you're going to find that you get a little less flight time, and if you fly it faster, as we will do in this video here in a little bit, that it's a little less agile because of that added weight. So those are the payoffs that you kind of have to choose between. Did a little Chimney investigation. I had thought I had heard an animal probably a squirrel or something playing around when I was near the fireplace one day. So while I was out on this flight, I just thought, let's make sure the screen's good on that so I could review that footage. I didn't do a great job of orbiting it, but that was what I was doing in that moment. But you can see with the gyro stabilization, the rock steady that's built into the 04, that it does smooth out a lot of motions that we might have. And to my eye, it looks like vibration-free, again, zero wind, vibration-free footage. So if you're wanting to get your shot, which is the primary design of something like this. We're back to the DVR footage, which has all our OSD elements, which gives you flight times. The throttle value that I am kind of cruising at, a little over 30. To report some flight times on the BetaFPV Lava battery, the 550. On average, of course, I fly 3 different batteries of each size and brand that I showed you. 5 minutes and 40 seconds on the 550. On the 450, I got 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Again, that's the Lava battery that I had out. The GNB 530, I got 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Again, terrible difficult to get into the tray. You do have the option that you can clip the tray off. They actually show that on the BetaFPV website. And with the tray clipped off, you can use a much wider array of batteries. Of course, you're going to need a battery strap. That does not come with it. And last but not least, the 380, I didn't think it was really worth flying very much. I flew 2 batteries on that. And, you know, if I really tried to land at my goal ending voltage of 3.5 volts per cell, I got about 1 minute and 25 seconds. And I got a lot of low battery warnings, which we're now getting after circling Mr. Rabbit here, and he's going to take off, and then I'm going to bounce off the ground as I try to get a lower shot. A little too much camera angle to be able to get that low shot there. But you can see the flight is coming into end. I fly, come on, 405 on this particular flight, but you're going to see the battery recover. So yeah, 410 is about what you're going to see. I got a little over 3.5 volts per cell on the recovery. Of course, we've moved inside now. This is an evening time flight. I don't know if we'll get to it during my narration, but there was a funny thing that happened, and when it happened, I thought I should probably highlight that in case you were flying inside. I think I have a little too much camera angle, and it is one of those things that with the 04, I always find it harder to fly inside or more aggressively in my typical manner, which we'll get to here shortly. But I'm going to fly over this vent, and I intentionally turned the air conditioner on, and just see that little shimmer as we flew over the vent. I'm trying to let you know that, you know, if you have an indoor environment and there is quite a bit of wind movement, that it can have an impact as we take a second pass. It's very minor. Again, this is DVR footage. We don't see any of the gyro stabilization just yet, but when we go to the gyro stabilized portion, we will do another pass over that vent, and you'll get to see that, well, I'll spoil it. The gyro stabilization, to my eye, took out that little shimmer that you get when you don't have the gyro stabilized footage. And here we go. We're going to go right into that pass with our rock steady turned on and right over that vent. Look dead smooth to me, but in the goggles, nope, you get a little... but you can see that you also have a smaller field of view with the 04 and rock steady turned on. It's zooming in a little bit to be able to create some smoother flow to your video. But the 04, I think, in its field of view is really the largest holdback for me and really enjoying it inside for my style of enjoyment and flight. But that's something that you can weigh out yourself. If you haven't flown an 04 before, or if you've flown an 03 or a naked 03, I think you might be taken aback a little bit by the lack of field of view for 04, especially inside, or if you're flying more aggressively outside in proximity. You know, if you're in a big open space or big open relative to inside, you probably won't feel it too much. But if you're trying to do freestyle tricks or maneuvers and you're trying to do a little bit of a faster sort of flight, close proximity to other objects, I think you'll feel it. Not that you can't adjust, but I really struggle with that. Doesn't matter how much I fly them, I just always struggle with that on every flight. Let's move on to my faster flight outside. Much different environment. We got 90 degrees, so yeah, we're still having a little bit of a heat wave, even though, well, it's now October, but this happened in September. The wind, 5 miles an hour, 5 to 7 miles an hour on the wind. And one of the things that I noticed when flying it more aggressively, and hopefully you can pick it up, is that you actually get some camera movement when you're doing somewhat abrupt stick movements. I'm not talking about big sharp stick movements either, that you get a little bit of shimmer and bobble. That's not the quad. Hopefully the flight audio that does not get recorded with the 04, that's something I record separately and I bring into the edits. You can tell that the quad isn't shuddering like in prop wash or anything when you see those camera movements. That look like it's bobbling around. I think that actually comes from just more aggressive flight and the fact that the top portion, the VTX and the camera, is soft mounted with that rubber dampening, and it doesn't just hold, the camera firm. It's made to sort out vibrations in slow, smoother flight. But as my normal sort of format, I do fly these in my normal format, which is my preferred format, a little faster, doing a little few, let's say, mediocre sort of moves or tricks or freestyle thingies, just to give you an idea whether you want to fly this faster for cinematic purposes, or you just want to be able to know that if along your FPV journey, if you have this or something like this or another quad that you've seen on the channel, that you will be able to fly it in a manner similar to this at the very least. Yeah, it didn't make it on that little move there. It didn't hit enough punch, so we had to go back for another 2 passes just to make sure. Yes, I can do that. And we saw when I came in there on that second pass, I came in a little too abruptly, so I flattened out too much before I brought the throttle up. And then we got some prop wash. That's not terrible unusual in micros. I think larger propped, larger motored quads, of course those without prop protection, tend to handle that a little bit better. But again, don't want to show you a flawless flight. We've got to show you a real flight. Got out of shape there as I came around the house. Had to make some quick adjustments. And I think the landing on this one, or I guess I should call it a landing, is going to be a little bit less than a graceful swan. And I do fly this battery pack, this particular one, just a touch low, but it should give you some idea if you fly in this sort of manner of what sort of flight time that you'll get, or how long you'll be able to do this sort of flight style on this particular quad with the 04 Lite, that is. Of course, as I said previously in the video, if you do go with the Pro, which is kind of what I prefer, you are going to have a flight time penalty as well as a little bit of an agility penalty. Is it tuned to where you can fly them both without any sort of tune issues? Can't really say, because of course I didn't mount up an 04 and test that. I tested it as it was shipped, as I do all quads. I do have one major crash, or what I think was the most impactful crash, that did cause the camera mount damage that you saw when we were doing the quick specs of the desk, and I will show you that with flight audio momentarily after this flight finishes up. It's something else that I wanted to show in this particular case, because I thought it was a pretty bad crash, and obviously I clipped the chimney. Not obviously yet, you haven't seen it. Oh.
Graceful.
But yes, let's move on to that crash footage here. As I swoop around this tree coming in from my little pass, I'm going to do just fine on the first time around, but on my next time around, as another maneuver comes through, I'm not going to quite hit the gap just right, and I'm going to clip the chimney, and then, yeah, battery ejection and all. Just playing this crash a second time so you get to hear it yourself. And in case you missed it, this is our damage. Something I didn't point out in the quick specs, hopefully you can see that they do have camera angle adjustments, and this was the angle I was flying a little bit faster. I actually pushed it up during one series of my faster flights, which I haven't shown in this video. I wasn't flying very well. I was crashing a lot, where I had it maxed out, so I had the top screw all the way back and the front screw all the way forward. So you can get a fair bit of camera angle because you've got some clearance above the camera. The canopy does not get into your view, or at least I did not experience that getting into view. The other damage that I already reported was I broke the battery tray when I was trying to stuff one of these. I don't remember which. I think it was the 380s in, and it just kind of put too much pressure on it and broke it. Of course, I already mentioned it, but BetaFPV's website also talks about it. You can clip off, above the flat spot here, when I'm horizontal flat spot, clip off the battery tray in this position and then loop a battery strap, but it does not come with a battery strap, so you'll have to provide that yourself. It looks like no, the motor wires are not connected to the carbon fiber, and I don't think there's any need. You can see it's a really short distance between the heat shrink that comes out of the motor that holds all the motor wires together and where it plugs into the flight controller. That's another feature I should highlight for repairability of motors if you were to get to that point. It's plug and play, so you don't need to solder there. Quite honestly, there's really no soldering you would need to do whether you bought this kit. Provided you buy the flight controllers with connectors. You don't want the flight controllers. I don't think if you buy a flight controller with the motor connector pointing up that would work. I don't think there's space. You might be able to finagle it with some DIY and some creativity, but I would suggest if you're going to build out a frame that you get a flight controller that has the motor connectors out the side, just as here. This is our Express LRS antenna. Of course, Express LRS works very, very, very well. No issues with that. There isn't a whole lot else to report on this. I didn't have any other damage that I'm glazing over that I didn't see. I did see, and I'll mention it once again, repeating myself here, in faster, more abrupt sort of movement, I think you do get a little bit of either recoil or movement from the camera when you're doing those. That's not actually the quad. And if you're doing that, it can be a little bit of an adjustment that we have to make, because it does visually kind of throw off your eye line. Just that little shake throws off your eye line a little bit, and it's something that you kind of have to adjust to. And that's probably why I had to go through my first series of faster flights just crashing out. Nothing serious, of course. If I've got that footage still, I hopefully will play it up above somewhere, but the limited field of view is something else with the 04. I think you need to make sure you're comfortable with. Otherwise, I think you want to go with the 04 Pro edition, which again, you can't buy it with the 04 Pro. You can buy the bracket, but then you've got to provide the 04 Pro. They may have 04 Pros for sale on the BetaFPV website. That's something to check out as well, but otherwise you'll need to source that separately. That's the Pico 2 from BetaFPV. There'll be a link down in the video description, as always, wherever I can find it. Of course, because it's relatively new. At the get-go, probably just BetaFPV's got it, but if you buy from Banggood or other sites, AliExpress, and your favorite FPV shops, I will link it anywhere I can find it, and then you buy it wherever you want. Whether you use those links or not, that is up to you. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that comment section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.